If you are coming to Japan or you're living in Japan and you want to do a couple of hikes in and around the city, these are my 5 favorite recommended ones in no particular order. Number 1, Jokozaki Coast. This was one of the first hikes that I did back in May last year. It's a beautiful coastal hike in Shizuoka prefecture. It has easy access, few people, but great views. And it is also very beginner and family friendly. A tip I have for this hike is if you can, do it in summer, in July or in August, because there is one part of this hike where there is kind of a rock pool that's a pool inside the ocean, so you can swim in this pool, which is kind of an ocean inside the ocean. I'm gonna show you a video so it makes more sense. But bring your swimming trunks and you can go for a nice swim at the end of the hike. Number 2, Nokogiriyama. This is a very popular day hike in Chiba on the Bozo Peninsula. The first highlight is already getting there. You can take a boat all the way from Yokosuka in Kanagawa, and you take a boat across the Tokyo Bay with some really beautiful views out on the city, on Yokohama, and also on the Chiba side and on the Kanagawa side. From the top of the mountain on a clear day, you can see all the way to Mount Fuji, you can see Tokyo, you can see Yokohama, and you can see all the way out onto the open ocean. It also has the very famous rock, I think it's called Hell's View, where you can kind of go up and you are standing on a rock on a cliff that's kind of falling down. But also along the way you are walking through this kind of old abandoned quarry, so you have a lot of like rock cutting tools that were left there and just some other interesting sights to see along the hike. Extra tip for this hike is to make sure that you read the markers clearly, because I didn't and I ended up kind of walking into the wrong direction for one part of the hike. If you want to see a more in-depth explanation about what I'm talking about as far as the markers go, you can watch the video up here, and there it's going to be explained more in depth. Number 3, Tonodake. This is a hike in the Kanagawa region in the Tanazawa Quasi-National Park. I cannot actually personally vouch for this hike because on the day that I went it was in the middle of the rainy season and it was just completely cloud covered at the top. But usually if you go, then you have really beautiful views out on the ocean, out on Mount Fuji and out on the Tanazawa mountain region. This is probably the most exhausting hike on this list, but you can make it a little bit easier for you. Instead of doing the Fool's Ridge, which is starting from Okuda, going up and then going down to Okuda, what I would recommend is starting from Yabitsutoge, then going up and then going down to Okuda. The way up from Okuda to the top is very steep and is not particularly interesting. Instead, if you go from Yabitsutoge, you can walk along the ridge line, you get some really beautiful views and it's not as strenuous as the other part. A tip for this hike is to bring water, because there is a hut at the top where you can buy drinks, but a bottle of Coke cost me a whooping 500 yen, which is around $5 US. The most expensive bottle of Coke that I bought in Japan, so bring drinks even if you can buy them up there. It's better to save the money, in my opinion. Number 4, Hiwariyaman. This is a beautiful mountain in Yamanashi prefecture, very close to Yamanakako, which is one of the 5 lakes close to Mount Fuji. Speaking of which, the views from the top of the mountain are really beautiful. You get some of the best Fuji views that I've seen on any of the mountain hikes. It's very open, very wide. The way up to the mountain is very steep, so it isn't a particularly long hike, but you have to climb up a very steep flight of steps to get to the mountaintop. I continued the hike to Ohirayama and then to the Miyako flower field, which passes through this really beautiful high grassland, which is also where I saw my first bear in Japan. It just kind of popped out in front of me, which was cool. Normally there aren't any bears, or there shouldn't be any bears, as I was told later by a kind of more proficient hiker. It's very rare that you would see a bear in that area because it's very popular. A lot of people usually live there as well. So yeah, normally you don't have to worry about bears, but it was still cool seeing a black bear in Japan. Extra tip for this hike is if you can, try going in August, because as I said, I ended the hike at the Miyako Flower Park, and in August there is a beautiful sunflower field completely free outside of the flower park, from where you have kind of this really beautiful view out towards Mount Fuji. So you get Mount Fuji with sunflowers, which is not a view that you would often get otherwise. And last but not least, number 5, which is Mount Ono. This is the most recent hike that I did. If you want to watch the video, it's gonna be up here. I don't know if you can link to videos, but otherwise it's gonna be down in the description below. And all of the hikes, by the way, are gonna be down in the description if you want to check them out and if you want to see the explanation on how to do it. But anyways, Mount Ono is this really beautiful panoramic open mountain. It's not particularly difficult to get to. You can start from Idayaga Station or Yamakita Station, which is on the JR Gotemba line. And then it's a pretty easy 2-hour hike to the top, but you are really rewarded with some beautiful views out towards Mount Fuji again. As you can see, I like Mount Fuji a lot, so I usually choose my mountains based on whether you can see Mount Fuji or not. And you also get a view out on the ocean and on Lake Tanazawa. The extra tip for this hike is what I did, I ended up continuing the hike towards Lake Tanazawa, which is something that I wouldn't necessarily recommend because the hike is after the main part where you are on the open plateau, just continues through like forested areas. It's very dense, there's nothing really particularly interesting, and the lake itself is also much more interesting from above than it is from the bottom. It's just your typical Japanese dam lake. If you have ever seen one, for example Lake Miyagase or Okutama Lake or something, those are better options, easily accessible, and are actually nicer as well. So yeah, really quickly, those were my 5 favorite hikes that I've done in Japan in the last year. If you're traveling to Japan and you're looking for something different to do than just going to another city and sightseeing and going to temples, then hiking might be a good option because Japan has some really unique nature that changes throughout the season. Some hikes are better in summer, some are better in autumn when you want to see the autumn colors. Some are better in winter when you have some winter grass and you have some more clear views. But yeah, definitely, if you are in Japan and you want to see some nature, hiking is the way to go. Every hike is pretty easily accessible with public transportation, as I don't have a car, so you can usually just take a train and maybe a bus. There are a lot of different resources for finding specific hiking routes in English language. I'll link to a couple down below. There's a blog, there's a little different website with like public access to information. So yeah, a lot of different information. And if you ever have any question about hiking in Japan, you can always just ask them in the YouTube comments, or you can follow me on Instagram and just send me a message, and I'll be happy to help out as far as I can. And yeah, hope you enjoyed this small video. Hope that I'll be back to filming some more cinematic hiking films soon. Right now, unfortunately, it's kind of raining this week. That's why I'm filming this video as a replacement. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. Go hiking in Japan, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.